What is up, Dynasty DNA Strand crew? I'm your host, Wizz, coming to you guys live with a brand new series we're kind of doing here. It's called the Dynasty DNA Roster Audits. You can follow me over on Twitter at DynastyWizzFF. And today we're joined here by TJ Blake. What's going on, TJ?
Oh, not much, Wiz. Pumping out a late night episode tonight. It's midnight here on the East Coast. You said it's 8 o'clock there where you're at in Alaska, beautiful Alaska. So, hey, it's just like this. Dynasty's 24/7, and you know me, you, Dynasty DNA, we're 24/7 by the look of it.
Absolutely, it's in our DNA. Some might say.
That's it, buddy. That's it. So let me ask you this: who are we deep diving into today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be deep diving into Deguidechris. So his roster is, his team, or I guess the league formatting, can't speak, is Superflex non-tight end premium in there. He said that he somehow won the championship last year when he should have rebuilt, but somehow squeaked it through and won it all, which is awesome, great news to hear. And for like additional information we should know about the team or about the league, he says that some people seem like they don't know what they're doing. So that could either mean like they overvalue players. I don't know exactly what, or maybe it's just hard to trade. Maybe they're not active at trading. But yeah, let's get into it.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Well, I will say this first and foremost, Deguidechris, congratulations for winning the championship last year, because we all know that's never easy to do. So when you're able to do it, that's a good thing. And I commend you for hanging on with the team that you have, because looking at it, it would be real easy to want to rebuild. But when you're winning, I always say, man, the main goal in Dynasty Fantasy Football is to win. And you were able to do it. And guess what? Okay, now you got your championship. Now let's blow this thing up and let's try to get back up to the top as soon as possible. And I'm looking at his roster right now, Wiz, and I think you can agree with me right off the bat. Like, when I'm going into a rebuild, I mean, there's always like a player or two I like to keep for a core of young guys just to have something to build around. But the one piece that he has, like when I go into a rebuild, I like to look at the biggest piece that I have that I think's also the best sell candidate and definitely could be the best sell candidate. And look at his roster. To me, it's Lamar Jackson, you know. And I mean, we kind of seen Lamar. Is his value ever going to get any higher than this? He won a second MVP, put up all kinds of crazy numbers last year. He played his first full season going into the fantasy playoffs without injury. So, I mean, really, right now, if you have Lamar and you're rebuilding, I think this is a perfect time to sell. Do you agree with that, Wiz?
Yeah, 100%. So in a recent trade I made in a Superflex league, I traded Lamar and the 4.9, I think, for Justin Herbert and the 3.1. I have personally ranked Justin Herbert a little bit higher than Lamar going into the season. I'm also been a lot more bullish on Justin Herbert compared to most other people. But I just like the talent there. But Lamar, I mean, for me, I see his shelf life for Dynasty kind of, or just playing at that high level for fantasy purposes, a lot smaller. I kind of predict like a Cam Newton-esque, fall. I just kind of see Lamar Jackson's athletic ability is going to keep trending downward. Kind of like Cam Newton, we've seen now with Russell Wilson, where they can't rely on their feet to make up for what they can't do with their arms, right? So.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's the thing. And, you know, the clock's ticking. We all know that. And like I said, from a pure value aspect, it's like, how much higher can it get than this? You know, like we really are starting to hit the peak. He's getting older. So right away, I mean, that's the first place I'm going to go. I'm going to try to look to move Lamar Jackson, Chris. And when I'm moving a player like this, I know you probably think a lot the same way I do, Wiz. I don't like to just give him to the best team specifically. Like, I mean, yeah, if I can get the best trade package from one of the contenders, that's fine. I'll make that trade then at that point. But, like, at first I like to target some of these middle-of-the-road teams that think they're better than they are. I mean, going back to what Chris said about how a lot of people don't know what they're doing in this league, well, here you go. I mean, target someone in the middle of the road. And I'm looking at this team here, Semi-Cool. Reminds me of that song, Seminole Wind, Semi-Cool Wind.
Oh, man.
That's who we're going to go after.
You're old.
That's what we're going to go after.
I don't even know that song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to remember, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. They play a lot of country music here, Wiz. I hear it all the time on the radio. So you got to know what we're dealing with here. But Semi-Cool, Seminole Wind, that's who I'm targeting first. And I know we've been kind of talking about his roster, and I think right away, okay, if I'm trading Lamar, he has a couple quarterbacks, a couple young guys that maybe you could pry away from him. Anthony Richardson being the first one, we know that he's injury plagued, but what we've seen through the first 3 or 4 games I really liked. So could you take a Lamar Jackson and get Anthony Richardson plus? Could you take Lamar Jackson and get Anthony Richardson in a first? I would do that. Or could you do like a mega type package? Like I see that Chris has Devontae Adams, kind of an aging receiver. Could you take Devontae Adams and Lamar Jackson and flip them for Anthony Richardson and Rashee Rice? You're getting younger assets back. Maybe you can do another pick swap in there. Could you get like a second from them and you flip them back a third, you move up around? Is that kind of a trade that you would like to do with something like that? I think that makes a lot of sense for a first target here from Lamar Jackson in a trade.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that makes a lot of sense in there. And I would also kind of look at these, I mean, we don't like trading with the upper echelon guys, but if the value's right and we get a good value for it, also I like to pick on the smaller guys down there. And right now, like on Dynasty GM, right, with the league analyzer, under the contending in there, we have a JC all the way at the bottom. And that's a guy that I'm like, oh, he has some older pieces. He has Matthew Stafford there. He has, Bijan, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Zach Moss, right? So these guys, he's going to be like, okay, they're going to be good, maybe fringe running back twos in there, I can piece stuff together. He has George Pickens, Romeo Doubs. Nothing really too special down there, but I might offer him maybe Lamar Jackson for Brock Purdy and his 25 first. I think Brock Purdy's a very unappreciated asset right now. I think it's a good value in there if you don't want to take necessarily the gamble with Anthony Richardson. We've seen what Brock Purdy can do for a fantasy aspect and on the NFL on the field. And I think that would also be another good buy there. And I would also just target guys that the values have been suppressed. Trevor Lawrence has been suppressed. Are you a Trevor Lawrence believer? Do you think he can pull stuff around?
I mean, yeah, that's just it. I mean, but and that's like going back to that trade with Anthony Richardson. I guess that's on the same roster there with Semicool. Honestly, if you prefer Trevor Lawrence and you'd rather get Trevor Lawrence than Anthony Richardson, try that first, like you said.
Right, absolutely. And then, you have Will Levis down there too, which, his stock is up right now, especially with the Calvin Ridley signing. The Titans are building up that offense, new coaching staff, new regime. If you don't believe in Will Levis, this is your best opportunity right now to get out. I would do it before the season. And maybe before the NFL draft, I'm pretty confident in Will Levis that he's not going to be replaced in this draft. I don't know if you feel the same way, TJ.
Oh, yeah, 110%. He's safe going into 2024. Now, going into 2025, depending on what happens, that could be a different story. But, yeah, definitely this year, he's about safe as I think safe can get. I'm not worried about Will Levis. They're going to build around that young quarterback. And the thing is about that, too, is, you got to realize not every year you're going to have a team like Arizona that drafts a Josh Rosen just instantly pivots to a Kyler Murray. When they spend high capital on a quarterback or any really position of some value, they're not just going to get rid of them in 2 seconds. You can't afford to.
Right.
So, unless there's an absolutely blow-you-away prospect there like Caleb Williams, then that's kind of different. But, as far as Will Levis goes, yeah, I think he's safe. But I like what you said about Brock Purdy going down here to this J.C. Geisto team. Brock Purdy in a first for Lamar, that would be great. You're resetting the clock with Brock Purdy, and you're getting a first. And I know we talked about this before, and it holds true. I like trades where I'm getting a quarterback back plus. You're getting a first. And that's the thing here, Chris. You want to reset the clock a little bit with some of these younger quarterbacks, but yet you're getting more assets. Get another first-round pick. That'll help put it in your cupboard going into the next season and the season after that. And the thing is, Brock Purdy, to me, Kyle Shanahan, he can't, everyone's giving him a moniker. He can't win the big one. He can't win the big one. And he has had trouble. But let's be honest. If there's a coach that's probably safer than safe in the National Football League, next to Andy Reid, it's Kyle Shanahan. He's not going anywhere. Brock Purdy's his guy. You're going to have him for at least a handful of seasons. And he's a young guy, and he's in a great system that fits him. And you're going to be able to get right around that fringe back-end quarterback one play out of Brock Purdy and get that first-round pick on top. That's really, really nice. And that's the thing when you're going through a rebuild. You want to collect and acquire as many assets as possible, and that way you can hit on some of this stuff, man. And with Lamar, that's your biggest trade chip. So you want to make sure you hit with that.
Yeah, and with JC, it's projected a lower pick as well. So if it's a top 5 pick, that's That's going to be huge, especially in the 25 class. It seems like it's going to be a real good class, good for running backs. And it's going to have some good high-caliber quarterbacks in there as well. So Superflex League's going to push a lot of stuff back. And they're going to get a lot of good value. But also he has Dalton Kincaid. I don't know, maybe you could add Evan Ingram in that trade and get Kincaid back as well on top of that. Because I think you could probably get more than Brock Purdy and a first for Lamar Jackson. So
yeah,
I would definitely just not offer him your best offer, like your bare minimum offer first. Offer something and have him counter back and find a nice happy medium between you two.
Yeah, but the thing is, man, I think this is the biggest thing with Lamar. Make sure you get the best trade possible. I mean, I think Semi-Cool and this J.C. Geisto are great targets. And, I mean, you could always work out a counter offer with them, too. You know, maybe if you want to add more players, different things like that, you could do that because, you know, I don't mind throwing them, you know, one of those aging running backs that Chris has either. You know, if that gets a deal done, someone that's going to be out the door soon. You know, I mean, like he's got Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner, Raheem Mostert. If I have to add any one of them guys and maybe have him throw me a 3rd or 4th round pick back, that's fine if I can just get a deal done like that. So I think that's the way I would go, Chris, with Lamar Jackson. That's the very first thing I would do, would be trying to trade him. I think that'll be, like, in your rebuild, the most essential thing. You want to make sure you get the right trade with that. And we know you're a member of the Discord, Chris. So if there is a trade that he makes, you can message us all on there, put it right on the trade board, and we can say, hey, he kind of countered. You know, we can all help you through that then as well. So I would target those two teams. But looking at his roster, Wiz, the next moves I would make, I'm going back to these running backs. We just brought them up. He's got Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner, Raheem Mostert, people like that. In situations like this, like I just mentioned, I would use them as pot sweeteners and bigger trades. But I also would try to, you know, if I could get a second for any of these guys, if I could get a second for James Conner, if I could get a second for Ramondre Stevenson, if I could get a second for Raheem Mostert, I'm taking it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know Stevenson's value right now is kind of real low because of Antonio Gibson in there, and we don't know what's going to happen with that backfield. Because Stevenson really thrived through the passing game there, and we know Gibson's a real talented pass catcher. So it's kind of like a bad time to sell. Last week was the perfect time to sell. But, you know, just anything you kind of get for these guys. Gus Edwards just went to Chargers, started moving before the draft. You know, stuff like that. You know, just a lot of common sense there. Chase Brown, I don't believe long term. So, but right now he's slotted to be I guess Zach Moss is there now too. But, I mean, he still has the potential to win that starting job. So I would try to move him while that's still there. I don't believe in the talent of Chase Brown. I don't know if you agree with that one as well, TJ, or not.
Yeah, I'm not a Chase Brown believer. Honestly, I mean, like, Cincinnati, I don't know what they're doing. Moving on from Joe Mixon and wanting to roll with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. I think it's going to be a disaster for fantasy purposes goes as far as the whole backfield in general. And me being a Steelers fan, you being a Ravens fan, you know this division. So I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be nothing wonderful out of that backfield. But, you know, going back to his running backs here, like I'm looking at a team right up here right now, Hamshanks. And I love that name. I think it's pretty cool. Hamshanks, I mean, he's got Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall, but after that, man, he has no running back help whatsoever. And he's at the top of the league. He's a contender. He's someone that could really use running back depth. So could I take like a James Conner or a Ramondre Stevenson and trade him to Hamshanks for a 2nd-round pick and maybe get him to throw in like a Dontavian Wicks or a KJ Osborne? Maybe you could throw him, you know, something small back, another player that's no good. Like, could you trade him, let's just say hypothetically, Ramondre Stevenson and Luke Schoonmaker and get a second and, you know, Dontavian Wicks? I would do that all day long. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, absolutely. In there, I mean, Wicks is a good upside player. They're in Green Bay. We don't know what's going to shape out, but when I'm rebuilding, rather, I'm trying to get as much assets as possible, right? I'm very liquid with everyone on my team. I'm not really holding people, not trading them, unless if I'm about to come out of that rebuild next year, and I know next year I have a good shot of contending. So,
yeah, definitely. And you look at Hamshanks' team; he's loaded at receiver. I mean, loaded. I mean, he on the bench. He's got Jordan Addison, JSN, Josh Downs, Joshua Palmer, Treylon Burks. I mean, he's got a lot of assets there at wide receiver. KJ Osborne, Dontavian Wicks. I would even, and I don't know if you agree with this, but like I would even trade Ramondre Stevenson straight up for Josh Downs if I could get that done. I mean, just give me a younger asset, give me a younger player, but I mean, I would try to go for the picks first. I like to get the picks, but even if I could make that 1-for-1 swap, I would do that. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you have to go down a little bit more, get Khalil Shakir. That's something that I would do. Parker Washington's a dart throw that I kind of like right now. Make sure he's rostered in a lot of the leagues. I liked his film coming out last year, and I think he definitely made some flashes towards the end of the season. So I think he's a good throw-in piece as well. And there he's not really worth anything. So
yeah, if you get him on top, like with that second-round pick, that would be great. But I do think Hamshanks, Chris, is someone I'm targeting if I'm trading these running backs. Like I said, you can use them as pot sweeteners in a bigger trade. I'm all for that all day long, but if it don't get anything done or you can't make any moves with them specifically, go to Hamshanks and say, hey, man, look, brother, you got Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall. You have no depth at running back. He's in total compete mode right now. I love how he has his receivers all set. He just needs a little running back help. And if he can give up a little bit, like a second-round draft capital, that don't kill a contender.
Right.
But that helps you in your rebuild process. So that's definitely something I would do for sure.
Yeah, and another one I wanted to mention is Tercey. He has Tajay Spears, Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, J.K. Dobbins, Alexander Madison. That's his only thing. So he's kind of a little bit thin on depth as well, and he doesn't have that clear, RB1 that's projected right away. I mean, Kamara has a good chance of finishing as an RB1, but everyone else is kind of shaky there. And if just send offers out to that guy as well. Second round, same thing. Hamshanks. He has a decent wide receiver room as well. He has Chris Godwin down there. Marvin Mims, if you believe in him. I know if Muss was here, he would say do it, but
yeah, Muss is a big Marvin Mims believer, that's for sure. But honestly, man, yeah, that's a good deal too. Either one of them teams, someone up at the top, need more running back depth. Target them, see what you can get. Like I said, even if you could flip a Ramondre Stevenson for a Josh Downs, I'll do that all day long. Try to get the picks plus first if you can. But I want to bring up Raheem Mostert real quick, Chris, on your bench. I know a lot of people don't like Raheem Mostert right now going into the offseason. He's 30, 31 years old, and for good reason. But, I mean, if someone's just trying to lowball you like a third or something, just don't take it. Just hold on to him, because as soon as the season goes, if he does remotely what he did last year, you'll get a second all day long out of some contender. Do you agree with that too, Wizz?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't get the value you want, you don't want to die on the hill. Definitely try to offload, because, I've been there where I knew I'd get at least a third for Gus Edwards, and I held, and I didn't get it. Trade deadline passed and everything. But I sold him this season on that same rebuild team for a second when he was getting all those touchdowns. So it kind of worked out, but I was stuck with the bag in the offseason. It was a little scary. But
yeah. And then going into his team here, I'm going to jump into his tight ends, because and I'll tell you, Chris, you got some good tight ends. You're deep there. Obviously, having Travis Kelce, who's one of the absolute most elite tight ends ever, but he is getting older. You have Evan Ingram, and you have Dalton Schultz. Them are all great options. So I'm going to go back up to our old buddy Hamshanks here. He's got Darren Waller, and he's got Gerald Everett, Tucker Kraft, people like that. He does have Jonnu Smith. And you know how I feel about Jonnu Smith. With
absolutely.
He is in Miami. He is a threat. You got to watch out for Jonnu Smith. But I will say this. I mean, if I'm Hamshanks, he needs a tight end. Chris, I would target Hamshanks in a trade. Could you send him Travis Kelce and get his first-round pick? I mean, right now, if I could get any first for Travis Kelce, I'm taking it. But if I don't get it, I'm just going to hold him, because same thing kind of goes what I said about Raheem Mostert. If he comes out and does what Travis Kelce's going to do, and he's more likely to do it than Raheem Mostert is, you can get any late-round first from someone that needs a tight end for Travis Kelce, because if you want to win, Travis Kelce's a nice player to have on your team. Also, if you don't want to spend that much on Kelce, say, okay, fine. Give me a second plus maybe for Evan Ingram. Could I get a second in Josh Downs for Evan Ingram? He's getting older too. And Evan Ingram's put up 2 really nice seasons in Jacksonville. Dalton Schultz is going to be a little bit more tricky. Maybe just hold on to him and wait till the season. Someone has a tight end that goes down, and you could maybe get a second a lot easier out of people for him. But I would take a second for him too. Do you agree with that as well, Wiz?
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, like, for Travis Kelce, I would maybe try to move for JSN straight up. JSN's value is really depleted.
Yeah. Or Jordan Addison, if you could maybe make that happen.
Yeah, both their values are real down. Sam Darnold being in Minnesota is not something that a lot of people are looking forward to. Even though I think J.J. McCarthy has a good chance going to Minnesota. But JSN, I mean, you're on a rebuild. You don't want points. And if JSN's going to be playing behind Tyler Lockett again this year, I mean, you still have risk there. But if not, just take the first if you don't want to take those chances.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's to me, I think that's like looking at Hamshanks' team. He's so tight end needy. He'd be the first person I'd be talking to. And again, if you move a Kelce first and you get that first round pick out of him, you can hold on to the other two guys until we go into the season. As soon as someone has a Mark Andrews go down or Dallas Goedert, someone like that, you can take advantage and maybe flip Evan Ingram for a second plus. I think you could do that all day long. And then looking at your roster, like to me, Wiz, like I said at the beginning, I like to have a couple guys to build around. I think I'm going to hold on to Devonta Smith unless I absolutely get blown away. Calvin Ridley now signing in Tennessee for a big contract, 4 years. I mean, yeah, I'm going to trade him because he's getting older if I can get fair value. But if I can't get fair value, I'll hold on to him. I think the two receivers that I want to move this offseason, though, off my roster, no doubt, are Davante Adams and Tyler Lockett. I know it's going to be a little tougher with Tyler Lockett. I mean, can you get, a second, or can you package him in a big trade of some kind? I would do that. Davante Adams, I still think you could get a late first out of Davante Adams. You think that's pretty good value on him, Wiz?
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable ask. But if not, I mean, you go shoot for a high second and then get some on top of it, like kind of like what we've been saying throughout it. Just get some throwing guy with the upside there. And And
speaking of that, I'm looking at this Clay-size team. He's got a hell of a team. But he's got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. I would trade Davante Adams straight up for T. Higgins, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, T. Higgins is, are we going to see a holdout?
Yeah.
I think it's a realistic possibility. You don't need to trade Davante Adams now. You could wait, see what T. Higgins does. If T. Higgins is going to hold out, I mean, 100% do that swap. Because I think right now with value of him projected to play, I think you might need to add a little bit more on there. But if you have to add a little bit more on there, it just depends on if you had to throw James Conner in there, I would do that just to push it over.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. So, if you had to trade Davante Adams and James Conner to get T. Higgins, I would. And, him being a contender, if T. Higgins is threatening to hold out, you got nice leverage here. Okay, you can have Davante Adams now who's going to help you next season right away. And I can wait on T. Higgins if he holds out because I'm a rebuilder.
Right.
So that's another one I like. I mean, I would try to maybe do something like that. I mean, and two, if he does stay in Cincinnati, if I'm Clay-Sci, I wanted to get diverse a little bit. You got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. That's kind of tough, if you got to play all three of them guys.
Right.
So that might not be a bad thing. And going up here towards the top, too, as we kind of mentioned before, we don't always like to trade with the best teams because, yeah, of course, their picks are going to be lower and whatnot. But, looking at Cyber Toaster, he's in absolute win now mode. He's got Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, and Christian Kirk. But after that, his receiver depth isn't the best. He's got Jerry Jeudy. Could I offer Davante Adams up to him and get a first? Just do it. Get a first. Like Wiz said, maybe get a little something extra on there. Could I get a first in Rashid Shaheed just to get him?
Right.
If it's a best ball league, you'd be really in good shape getting Rashid Shaheed.
Right, absolutely.
Or could you get a first in Demario Douglas? Just see what happens. But I think them are good moves too. But looking at that, Chris, I think that's what I would do. Them are some of the moves I'd make with some of your league mates. But I think the big thing is here with some of these guys, and I know Wiz can agree with this, if you cannot get fair value, I just wait a little bit because you'll get the right trade, especially once this draft's over. Let's say you can't pry away 2024 picks from people because they are the most valuable assets to a lot of people right now because we're getting so close to the draft. after this draft, can I pry away 25 picks? If I have to do that, I will. You agree with that, Wiz?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just really depends on what your point structure is like to determine what gets or who gets the 1.1, right? If it's whoever wins the losers bracket, obviously you're going to position your roster a little bit differently where you still need to win that losers bracket. But if it's just lowest point and max points, 25 picks, those are only going to go up in value. Everyone knows that by now. That's played Dynasty for a decent amount of time. And even like 26 picks, I don't think, probably after the 25 season there, you should be in decent shape to maybe start opening up to contend again. But, you won the chip. You're playing the house money at this point, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, there's a lot of things you can do. Like I'm looking at this Therese team. Would I be able to trade him Tyler Lockett and get, maybe Marvin Mims straight up just to see what happens? Because let's be honest, Tyler Lockett, you're right to the end. Just see what happens. You could probably even get a little plus. Could I get Marvin Mims in a third?
Yeah.
For Tyler Lockett. Could I get Michael Wilson in a third? Just try it. You never know. And that way you're resetting the clock. And sometimes, like when you're looking at a Tyler Lockett, like you're running out of time to a point where it's like, man, you're going to get absolutely zero for him, and he's clogging up your roster. You can get prospects and picks back. Try to do that. That's just the way for him, he's someone I'm absolutely trading. But yeah, I think that would be a good deal if I could get Marvin Mims in a third, if I could get Michael Wilson in a third for Tyler Lockett, I would do it. And that trades him to a contender that could use him for the last maybe 2 years he's got left. But I think, that's pretty much the gist of it, Chris. That's what I think I would do with your roster. Any other moves you want to make, Wiz, before we finish it up here for him?
Yeah, would you be open in trading your 24 first? It's 1.10, right? So it's the latest pick in the first round. Would you be willing to package that up to get a better tiered asset? Something that's proven?
Yeah, I think I would in this draft. Yeah, because, doing our film review, I really like the first 8 picks. But after that, man, it kind of gets sketchy. I've been saying it all along. Give me a lot of second-round picks in this draft. That's what I'm saying about these running backs, Chris. If you could trade them now and get 24 picks, do it. But, yeah, I totally. I'm not real comfortable sitting at 110 right now in a lot of my drafts personally. So, yeah, if I could take that and package it and get some kind of young, proven, talented player all day long, I'm good with that.
Yeah. And like trades, you could look at, TJ Bro has, or not TJ Bro, Semi-Cool, he has Ayuk and Rishi Bryce, trade Devontae Adams in your first for, Ayuk or Rice and get a second back for this year and maybe a 25 second on top of that, right? You're just insulating a little bit and then you're mitigating the risk and you're getting that higher tiered asset. So.
Yeah, I'm all for that. That would be a good trade. And that's what I mean, and that's the same way. I would even try dangling. I don't mind you try dangling that out there and getting a Drake London if it can get it done. Coming in with Kirk Cousins right now, he's still young. He's still a proven asset. You could pretty much move him for a first anytime because I think he's going to play so much better with Kirk Cousins. I know there's a lot of people saying oh, man, Drake London, he's getting so much hype. But, I'm telling you, he's a good player. He just hasn't had any quarterback play. I think he's going to benefit the most. I could see him being a high-end wide receiver, too, next year. And that would be a nice player to have at his age level. So that's another guy I'd be looking at.
Are the days of trading Travis Kelce for Kyle Pitts over? Do you think you still do that 1-for-1 or get a plus on the Pitts side for Kelce?
Boy, it just depends, I guess, maybe if the team was in absolute win now mode, or if they were in complete rebuild mode. It just depends, but I think Kyle Pitts' value's gone back up, almost to the point where it's going to be kind of disgusting a little bit again.
Right. you could offer Sabertos, Kelce straight up for Pitts, maybe it might bite. It doesn't hurt to try. So.
No. And if he would take that, that's a great deal for you. Absolutely, try that. If he would go for it. I think the big thing is with Kelce, Chris, is I'd just be patient. If I can't get the right deal, you got to at least get a good, young, talented player back like Kyle Pitts or get a first-round pick because I guarantee you, and you know it, Wiz, as soon as the season starts and he's putting up massive points, people are going to want this guy. And I mean, if you have a chance to win it all and you're one tight end away, what the hell? Why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
You know, especially if you know your pick's going to be 110 to 112.
Absolutely.
So that's how I feel about it. But you see any other moves you like?
No, I think that basically covers it. I mean, if there's anything you see in there, just drop in the Discord, trade. We have a bunch of different things going on in the Discord. So if you're not a member already, make sure you go over, join our Discord. Just make sure you come over here and join us. We have a lot of things going on here. We have a bunch of channels. DFS is in here. Trade advice, Dynasty startups. You look for someone to join a league. If you're looking for someone to take over an orphan team, you can do that all in here. But there's a bunch of stuff going on. Link will be down in the description. If you also want a roster review in the Discord, fill out that Google form, and we'll review it whenever we get to it. So
absolutely, man, and it's a blast doing it, Chris. Thank you for submitting it. I hope that you get your rebuild underway and get it going. And the same thing I'm going to say after all these videos, guys. I mean, you have access to Wizz, you have access to me, you have access to everybody in the Discord. If you don't feel comfortable about a trade, or if you have a question, all you got to do is put it in the trade tab or in the roster review tab and say, hey, guys, you reviewed my roster. This guy's offering me this. Do you think it's a fair deal? Do you think I could add something to it? We'll do it in a heartbeat. As soon as we can get to it, we'll get back to you and try to help you with that. And don't be afraid to ask.
Absolutely. But until the next one, adios.
See ya.